Hello, my name is Duyên and this is Chang.
We are from Bakuna High Schools.
Now, racism, I think most people will agree that the world will be a much better place without it. But how do we get rid of it?
Well, we have come up with some solution for it. But first, let us start with understanding what the definition of race and racism actually are. The most popular definition of racism is the belief that different races possess distinct characteristics, abilities, or qualities, especially so as to distinguish them as inferior or superior to one another. And prejudice, discriminations, or antagonism directed against persons or people on the basis of their membership of a particular racial or ethnic group, typically one that is minorities or marginalized. It has two parts. One is the belief that one race is better than another race. The second part talks about prejudice, discriminations, or antagonism directed against persons or people based on such belief. This belief potentially becomes an action. Prejudice is fairly common in our communities, not only with race, but with things like age, socioeconomic status, gender, and sexual orientations. Think back to when you met someone new. Did you have certain feeling about that person based solely on their appearance? I think many of you may answer yes. Discriminations, either unfair treatment of a person or group on the basis of prejudice. Again, you can be discriminated by a lot of reasons. Discrimination is usually under the surface. The best example for it is hiring practices. It's not legal, but again, it's usually under the surface. Antagonism is basically if someone acts out on their belief about racism that's obviously racism. This seems to be the rarest today, but it does exist. The recent George Floyd case is the best example for this.
But what about the term race? Well, it is fascinating because it essentially is a term invented to make one group of people justify that they are superior to another group of people. Here are what shows up when we look it up on the internet. Each of the major divisions of humankind having distinct physical characteristics. The fact or condition of belonging to a racial division or group. The qualities or characteristics associated with this. A group or set of people or things with a common feature or features. Notice how the first definition mentions physical characteristics, which in this case is the race that most of us think of. In particular, we tend to think of skin color. But how ridiculous is that? I mean, I can change my skin color by going outside in June for an entire day. First of all, pure race does not exist, genetically speaking, and we have science to prove that. The Human Genome Project, the international science experiment which attempted to map the DNA of every human being to ever exist, had one important conclusion that race, as we know it, does not exist. They said that genes for physical traits, such as skin color and hair color, can be identified between individuals, but no consistent patterns of genes of the approximately 2,500 genes found in human beings exists to distinguish one race from another. There is also no genetic basis for divisions of human ethnicity. What is crazy is that there is no evidence that anyone even used the term race or anything like it before the Middle Ages. In the late 1400s and 1500s, it was the Europeans who first began to use the term to justify their enslavement of people that they encountered with different skin pigmentation in Africa, Asia, and the Americas.
So, race and racism are new phenomenons. And all of the we stated prove that this racism thing are pretty much stupid. But unfortunately, it still exists. And what do we need to do to end racism?
Well, we got it all figured out right. Here are our solutions. If every human being did these three things, and they taught their children to also do it, we think racism as we know would cease to exist.
1. Acknowledge that race has no genetic basis and was a term invented by one group of people to justify that it was superior to another group of people. Absolutely everyone should know this, and it should be taught at a very young age.
2. Acknowledge that you did not choose your physical characteristic, and you should not have too much pride in your physical characteristic. Sure, you can tan, you can dye your hair, or you can have plastic surgery, but you did not choose the physical characteristic you were born with. Isn't it really silly to be extremely proud of your physical characteristic which you were born with? On the other hand, why on earth would you think negatively about the physical characteristic of someone else when they were also born without choosing it?
3. Stop using the term race to describe a person. I do not define myself by race. Not only do I feel it is an outdated term, but why should I limit how I define myself to simply the physical characteristics that I was born with? Isn't that superficial? We're all multifaceted, complex, unique individuals with many different characteristics. Why should I limit myself by saying I am a white guy, or a black guy, or a blue guy, or a green guy? Labels are dangerous anyways. Sure, they come in handy, and there is definitely a time and a place for labels, but they should never define anyone.
We know that there was a mess right now with coronavirus and protest for crack rights have been created this week. And we think that's the way we are going to lift up society, change what we have to change, do what we have to do, and create a better world for the future.
In conclusion, the first and the most important thing that we need to do is to educate people that there's only one race, the human race. Thanks for watching.